All right, let's get rolling. Hope you're having a good morning. Hello, I am aLex Levin. We are here together to practice and not react. Some of the wisdom from the ages, drawing on some of the wisdom from the Yoga Sutras. So we're here together in Sun and Moon Yoga Studios YouTube portal, and you're with me in my home with 2 orange cats and a dog. Gather what you need. Give you about 30 seconds or a minute. Hopefully you've already had that, or if you're watching later, you can pause and go get your blankets, cushions. It's the first day of me recording here with long pants and a shawl in case I'll need it, but it's actually warming up today. Be here now. Which is sort of a process, right? To be here now, being, becoming. There's implies a process to get to be and leave it, also a process, but there are sort of a intents that we're looking for. We will center. We will shift gears from that arrival and grounding to an attention to our presence in our body and move on purpose and observe that movement. And then we will be still without holding ourselves still, meditate. So you can do this practice sitting. You can do it lying down. You can do it, I'm just turning on my clock. You can do it lying on your side, being in legs up the wall. And so interesting, as I'm settling and my voice is in this meditation guidance voice, the cat who's been strolling around is beginning to settle. So centering, just arriving this past week as I taught the class, my meditative movement class at the studio, Zoom also, hybrid. The arrival felt so strong for me, and maybe it's partly because of driving to a location and then arriving. And so as you choose your position, your posture, your place, your seat, especially sensing into the physical form, especially tuning into what I call, a term from my teachers, tapping into the felt sense, which includes the physical and the emotional and the cognitive together. So really that brings us to a full embodiment, especially adding in that physical. Many of us live either in the cognitive or emotional very easily. Coming into the physical, the body is such a strong portal to arrive right here. So sensing the parts of our bodies that are in contact with earth or whatever is solid underneath. And simply opening, it's quite effortless, simply opening once we bring our attention there, the focus of our attention. Simply opening to sensing how our bodies are positioned with relation to the gravitational field, which allows a downward pull. But once we start tapping into the our body's relationship with that, our awareness of that, we'll also feel the opposing force of levity, of buoyancy. And so at this point, you don't really, and maybe I'll model this a little more in the way I'm sitting myself. You don't actually, I didn't suggest to necessarily sit up straight, although the gravity levity continuum, that vertical beam implies it. But we can be bowed in the heart and shoulders and still find that. If you are supine and lying down, or in legs up the wall, or on your side, or in an armchair leaning back, you can still feel any point in space. If you drop from any point, drop a plumb line down to the earth, perpendicular to the earth's surface. You line up with this grid, and it's incredibly stabilizing. But see that for yourself, feel it for yourself. I'm moving a little bit, but it helps to be as still as taking a sip of my water, put my wrap on. And so sensing, perhaps if you're sitting, to the sits bones, to the upper part of the legs. And you might even try, I'm going to actually lean back onto my hands for a moment. So ground, this is the ground element. Three pointers I use to help us line up with presence, with now. And breath. There's nothing we need to do but tuning into what the feel of our breath, the flow of it, the pace, the shapes that it creates as we, in our body. Where that is. Perhaps even sensing, this is quite poignant to sense the end of in and out breath, those transitions. Not having lost track of our body here, even if it's sort of peripheral. Keeping the aperture of our attention wide open even as we focus in. This is a skill. We do it all the time, but we can also expand the practice. And then you might shift your position again. I'm going to shift, and this time I'm going to come. You might join me, or you might not join me. It doesn't. I'm going to come more upright, as if I was getting ready to be in meditation. Find that center. So I've reestablished the ground, that where I am in all parts of me, the scanning, the shoulders, the head, the jaw, the arms, hands, the rib cage and upper belly, lower belly, pelvic floor, sits bones, the long bones of my upper legs and lower legs, the squat bones of my ankles, and then the longer bones of my feet. And I'm using the word bones, but as I'm traveling, I'm aware that there's so much more there: nerves, blood vessels, skin, muscle, fat, all kinds of cells, including our immune system, lymph. And from here, and it doesn't matter if you're in a meditation posture, either lying down like some symmetric or upright, exactly for this next part. But we'll segue, I love that word, S-E-G-U-E, segue, into movement, a micro movement, or a little macro movement like me, taking another sip of my water. And why do all this? Why do all this in the first place? Putting that question out there for you. I'll give an answer, but feel into it for yourself. Our suffering can be relieved by not clinging so tightly to our patterns. But it takes a kind of effort to get to that. It's not like we can just wish it, believe it away, because our bodies carry the patterns as well, not just our mind, our thinking. But that's an important part of it: thinking, the cognitive, the imagination, the imagery that's there, the movies, the library. But it's as if we're editors of a movie film. And the yogis have told us that to still the patterning of consciousness, we need both practice and non-reaction. So a regular practice, as we are doing here together today, and to work with the relationship of our attention to what is present. So often, if it's going fast, we're just caught where we can't slow it down. But if we are like film editors and we go shot by shot, cell by cell, I'm not sure if the metaphor will work, but it might. We might be able to manipulate the cells in the movie. Or we might benefit from learning the skill of not being as reactive anymore. So we centered, we arrived, and we were noticing. And while I've been speaking, you may have still been doing that. And now shift the movement I'm asking of us is to shift our weight. Just start to weight the right sits bone more heavily. And if you're laying on your back, it might be worth bending your knees a bit to let this happen. Just how do you do that? How do you pour more of yourself, more of your weight, more of your physical self? And you might need to shift in a bigger way. It might not be so micro. And then just come back to where you started. And we'll do that. Just repeat that slowly. The movement, there's a weighting, an unweighting of the left side, and a weighting, weighting, of the right. Something maybe needs to happen from front to back. There's a rolling of the pelvis, of the hips. You might need to do it more grossly. And the idea in our movement is to make it pleasurable, to enjoy it, to have fun with it, is to know there's many more ways than just one. At least I am told by my key inspirational teachers, who I never met, but have studied from his students and his writings, Moshe Feldenkrais. Is there at least 3 ways to do any action? It might have to do with the design of joints and the 3-dimensionality of our body. And especially when joints are more circular, like the hip joint and the arm, shoulder joints. When they're hinge joints, that's another thing. That's another story. Okay, so stop. Just stop and come back to where you were. And as I invited the class on Thursday at the studio, which is also available in Zoom, imagine you're writing a postcard about this travel we've just been on and the experience, how it feels in your body now, how it feels in your experience, the felt sense. So it combines, I invite you to be as accurate as possible, perhaps poetic, putting together several words. Take poetic license to get at sensations that might be hard to get a single word for. And I'll model it by reporting. And if you're in a space where you can say this out loud slowly, that can be really helpful, because your own hearing, your own feedback, and I never added that third pointer in our centering, sound, the sound, but whatever is coming in and out, the entities that come to us and go out from us, these communications are very, very helpful. We can sense if they're spot on. So give me a moment to see. I can feel I feel different than I did about 4 minutes ago. I feel warm, a milky warmth streaming through my arms, my legs, and tingly, as if I'm motioning with my fingers. You can use gesture to communicate as well. I'm feeling a tingly, like fingers on a piano, or butterfly feet walking on my lower back. It's a light tingle. So I would refine that to say I feel a warm, milky flow in my limbs and an effervescence, a cooler effervescence at my sacrum. And so now let's shift and let our weight flow. Now that you're finished, good job, finished reporting your felt sense. Let's shift our weight into the left sits bone. And you might do this adding your imagination. How would it look? How would it How would it happen? What would it take? And a little hint that it might take a tilting of the pelvis forward or back to help that. And this side might come more easily or might be more challenging than the other. There might be something that needs to happen through the right side of the body. And allow any twisting, pushing, anything easy, and keep it like with a sense of wonder and a sense of fun as you're being with it. And any distractions that come, like the mourning doves pecking at the seeds outside, just let them be. Leave it be. Rocky's training terms. And as you're moving, can you sense maybe more and more higher resolution, what you're feeling and sensing, not just in the side of the pelvis that's getting heavier, but all through you and in your whole experience, in your whole felt sense. I'm feeling the joy of our process together, of the smoothness I feel in my body, as well as the smoothness I feel of joy. So emotion can be part of your report on your postcard. And you can continue, you could come to a stop, or you could continue. I'm going to segue into the meditation part, but you could take a few more times of moving and coming to stillness. Eventually, when you're ready to come to stillness, we're once again shifting to a whole different mind state. And this is a skill in itself, to be able to quickly change to a more thinking, analytical, cognitive mode, to shift to a relaxed, open mode, to a deeply attentive to what's happening mode, to a mode of meditation where we choose now to, for about 6 minutes, to attend to our posture. And after one last turn, to check on the mourning dove, to be still, without rigidity. Coming back to that setting up and arrival, ground, breath, sound. And here we really have the strong opportunity to observe the degree of our reactivity or non-reactivity on that continuum. Whether it's towards something in our own body, our mind, our heart, or to something around us in this moment, or to something imagined in the future, or remembered from the past. So as we are in this practice of simply being here now, alertly but relaxedly, together, We get to be like Rumi's guest house. In that moment, as much in the now moment as possible, but we live in time, so we might say it's a fraction of a moment before we respond, before the reactivity happened, or to watch the reactivity. Watch that moment. It's very quick. So we go in edit mode. So we get to see from that part of us that is unchanging, and just a knowing presence, that light of our awareness. We get to see what happens in us that we're really aware of or we're not so aware of. And so we become more aware of, more conscious of. So some things will easily be non-reactive to. We have a response and we cannot react to it. We can see it. It's kind of not so embedded or interwoven, or it's just not as difficult. And then some will be more challenging. But this practice will allows us to see that reactivity and maybe the next reaction and the next. And as much as possible, fall back into a sense of warmth, heart warmth, compassion, along with the light, along with what's illumined. These are qualities that awareness distills into in us. This is a gift of our human existence. Perhaps the word from Sanskrit, sattva, where there's balance and harmony. The other states will always be there, the torpor, tamasic state, and the agitation of the rajasic state. They're all here, and we just sort of have more of our consciousness coming toward the sattvic. As we practice. Palms together at the heart while we are still aware of this body, the felt sense, sound, ground, breath, and maybe a little report to yourself on what the felt sense is right here. And we're transitioning now as we bow our heads to our hands and heart and to each other, to ourselves, signifying the end of this practice. And now we go on to another thing, and perhaps jumping into a different state of attention. And perhaps you have the luxury to linger a little bit more, a lot longer, and just my desire is to just sip on my coffee for maybe 5 or 10 minutes before I shift to the next thing after this. Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you all who join in this practice, not just because it's you join me here, but that this practice makes us better citizens of our planet, and that's really important. It brings us to understand this mystery of our part in the relationships, and that we have all these differences, and yet we are all of the same light. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse of the kitty cats swiveling the camera, so I think you can see them that way. And swivel back, and take care. Ciao, ciao. See you next time.